So thank you all very much for coming to this session of CabinSpace Live. This is the second session today, and we have a fantastic panel here. So the session is called Cabin Environment, Achieving the Ultimate Ambience and Wellbeing for Passengers. And so we have Aris Promos here from Fokker Services Group, Charlie McBride from Priestman Good, and then Dan Rust, IFPL Cobalt Aerospace, as well as Nicholas Michelinakis from Aircraft Lighting International. Welcome all, and thank you so much for taking part in this panel. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting and insightful discussion. Would you like to say a few bits about yourselves and the companies to start?
I'm Aris Promos. I'm responsible for sales for our facility in the Hogerheide in the south of the Netherlands, where we have an activity of aircraft engineering maintenance, but also VIP completions, which we take care of for almost 100 years now in total. So our capability allows us, and our experience allows us to make the most sophisticated interiors that one can imagine, let's say. So,
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Charlie McBride. I'm a senior project manager at Priestman Good. We're an employee-owned multidisciplinary design studio based in London. And I direct clients and manage projects with some of the best-known airlines and the seat manufacturers and IFE suppliers. I've always been really passionate about the intersection of design and business, and I've been fortunate enough to work with global brands like Adidas and Red Bull, as well as Virgin Atlantic, and most recently Riyadh Air, who I know are making waves at the moment. My role is really to sort of partner with the design team, senior management, suppliers, external parties, make that process as efficient as possible so everyone else can focus on innovation and creativity and all those great things. And since joining PG in 2021, I've worked on leading large complex projects in both the private sector and also for commercial airlines. And I'm also responsible for managing internal initiatives to continue Priestman Good's position as a leading global design studio.
Hi there, I'm Dan Rust. I founded Cobalt Aerospace back in 2013, which is predominantly an LED lighting company focusing on retrofit. 3 or 4 years ago, we were acquired by IFPL, who you've probably heard of, been around a long time, and that's broadened us out, so we're now looking also at in-seat power and a lot more of the cabin experience that passengers get. Within that company now, I sit as engineering director and head of the Part 21J design organization.
I'm in this business now for lighting, aircraft lighting only exclusively since 1980. Everything has been invented on exterior and interior lights. I was involved somehow, and we went almost all the way in space. I don't remember Atlantis, that the one that exploded, and all the previous one. We did the interior lighting for them. I lived and I participated in the evolution of the things. We started with incandescent, we went to LED, to fluorescence, now we're into LEDs. And we involved with any manufacturer, well, from King Air, Gulfstream, Cessnas, Bombardiers, Embraers, and BBJs. And that's what I know how to do for 42 years. It's a very exciting life.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Like I said, we have a brilliant panel, and just to kick off the conversation, we think about the cabin environment and ambience and things to consider. If we start with sort of the core things that when you start planning an enjoyable cabin ambience, what would you start to consider when you start the process?
Well, there is a big difference, of course, between commercial airlines and private operators.
Yes.
And of course, everyone can imagine in the first place that in terms of commercial airlines, they can feature a business section or a first class section with an enhanced cabin, with an experience cabin, let's say, where you have these more, let's say, sophisticated features throughout this section, as opposed to a VIP operator or a VIP aircraft, where the requirements are more specific and of course far more customized. And of course the elaboration is totally different because it steps away from serial production, and the larger the aircraft type is, the more customized elements you will encounter. So in a smaller aircraft you are more bound to, let's say, modular elements because of the space, but the larger the aircraft is, you can almost do not everything, but a lot of it, because it has to be certified also at the end of the day. So, and therefore we merely work together with a whole environment of completion managers, designers, creative designers behind other designers. It's a whole environment that has to work very closely together to achieve the ultimate result, which is the utilization of the individual or individuals that will make use of the aircraft. So in each and every segment is as important. I mean, there is no negligence possible throughout the whole process of the project, in fact.
Yeah,
So
I like what you're saying there about the sort of collaborative aspect, because I think, you know, we always feel very privileged at our role and our position in the industry. We get to work with all of these great parties and different minds and pulling them all together. And for us, we always start most projects by thinking about, you know, what benefit do we deliver for the passenger and that passenger experience.
Yes.
And then we marry that up with what we're trying to achieve for the brand, you know, if it's a commercial airline. So you kind of have to play this balancing act between delivering for the passenger, but also telling some kind of brand story or delivering on a brand truth. And that, for us, forms the crux of that challenge. And that's where we work with people like Fokker and other, you know, amazing companies to try and bring that expertise together and come up with those solutions.
Yeah, it's interesting. You guys are kind of, perhaps mirror is the wrong word to us, but we're developing LED lighting solutions that you're perhaps taking advantage of. And we're not just, you know, implementing the cabins that you may come up with, but we're also directly dealing with the airlines and the operators and seeing with their own eyes, you know, what they like to see. And I think you don't have to go back a long way in things like mood lighting, which personally, I may be biased, but personally I think it's one of the biggest impacts you can make on an aircraft when you step on board. You see it, the colours, the wash that you do, it hits you very quickly.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go back a long way, and that was really the preserve of business class. These systems were very complicated, very expensive. And we've been working for years now, bringing that to the masses almost, so that those features you're talking about, whether perhaps you're trying to induce sleep or a calm environment, or you want to wake people up at the end of a flight, perhaps you've got branding going on, sports teams, it could be all sorts of things. You know, we're being able to do that throughout the cabin and in a retrofit environment, so it isn't just large mods coming in that you guys have been designing for months. We've been trying to make that possible to do quickly and on lower budgets, because it is such an important part, you know, of the cabin experience.
Yeah, I mean, we always look at that as like an extension of that kind of brand palette that for us starts with, you know, the colors, the materials and finishes of all the materials and everything else that you can customize on the seat, but also in the cabin. And then we definitely look at that lighting as that extension of that. And like you said, that first impact when you step on board is absolutely huge. But all the control that you can now achieve that's been developed by companies such as yours is fantastic. Making that more personal experience for passengers, whether it's in the private sector or for commercial. And the things getting asked for. It started off with Northern Lights and it's turned into party themes and all sorts, and so slowly we evolve our product. We have to put controls in place as well, though.
You do.
You don't want to come on board and everything's just, you know, crazy and chaotic, you know. There needs to be some level.
I agree with you there. So, of course, lighting has a massive impact on the cabin ambience, as well as well-being for passengers. Nicholas, what are your thoughts on this? Would you like to share some of your projects, maybe, where you've been considering
And endless
Yes.
projects. Every project is different, and the cabin lighting is very in the aircraft is very important because it has to first of all it has to do two things. Humans are not designed to go in a small confined area and something they don't understand. As you can see, if you bring an animal in a cabin, they don't want to get in. The same applies to humans, but we don't understand. So the light has to be inviting, and we make it inviting by being very bright when they come in. At the same time, when they sit down, they have to calm down. This is okay. Everything is okay. All the machines and the noise in the aircraft, ignore it. Everything will be fine. We take off. And the second thing we have all the time is if it's very bright, we are afraid because it reminds you of ice. The blue light is ice. But if it's nice and warm light, it reminds you of sun. And you feel comfortable because we are through thousands of years. That's the only way we get the light. We get it from the sun, which gives us heat. Yes. And at night, when we didn't have light, we go by the fire, which is yellow, and we feel comfortable. And that's what we try to do to people. So they sit down and they feel, oh, I feel comfortable because through evolution we became like this. The second thing we have to do is very important. Also, this security. This is the latest came out now with the security. We don't have too much light because even we know it or not, there are people in the cabin that, especially after 9/11, protect us. What do you call them? Marshals, air marshals. And we have too much light. The study proved that we call it light pollution. And if the marshal sits all the way in the back and something happens on the front, he cannot identify the person. So it has to be for him to be clear, the people to be comfortable. And the biggest problem of all, super overpowering everything, is regulators. The regulators come together, you have to be safety. Does it go on fire? If it goes on fire, does it suppress any other system? Can we land safely? All these things have to happen to the lighting. But of course, number one is the passenger who has to get into the airplane. It's a little confusing. And it's, of course, on the top of that, the designers. These people come with a crazy, no, I love it.
Good.
It's very challenging. The designers come with ideas so weird. Sometimes I want to hit them. I can give you examples of many times. They come with ideas, like I'll tell you an example. A customer had a designer who figured out on a spa. I don't know what spa he goes to, but they have all this water, and the light goes like this. And he wanted to put the same light in the cabin, and it was a mess. And finally, the customer says, "No, I don't want it."
It must have been one of our competitors, right?
No, yeah. And another customer had designed something, a very exotic carpet with gold thread. But they decided on the light, and the customer says, "Where's the thread?" He couldn't see the gold thread. And the problem was the light. So rip off the light, do it over again. So many things have to go at the same time in an airplane. That's why I lost my hair, by the way.
Yes, indeed. There's so much to consider, isn't there? Charlie, what are your thoughts on this? Obviously, you've worked on so many different kinds of projects.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you touched on quite a few
I'm
very
sorry.
interesting
I'm sorry.
topics there. Too many.
Maybe we can sit down.
I think, yeah. One of the things we haven't really touched on maybe is how you kind of integrate the technology into the cabin as well. Mm-hmm. And, you have to cater for all different types of passengers. So you want that impactful first moment when people step on board, and you want the cabin and the seats to feel alive, but also welcoming. You have anxious flyers as well, so you don't want to overload people as well. So lighting is one thing. The other thing is technology. And when you get to your seat, you don't want to feel overwhelmed necessarily all the time. So what we're seeing now is advances in technology where you kind of have like hidden tech that comes alive when you need it. And I think you'll probably be seeing that at the show this week. There are some projects we're working on as well that touch on that. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But I think that's also a very important factor, that technology, as well as the lighting. So yeah, a few things to think about there.
Yes, indeed. And new projects with that address the circadian rhythm. They're so important for well-being.
Yeah.
and I can see them definitely becoming more of a norm in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we often think about like a pseudo-science approach to lighting as well, and that's where we really sort of rely on you guys, the innovators, the inventors, to bring that kind of rationale to the lighting as well. Mm-hmm. There's one thing just aligning the lighting to, brand color palette, but there's another where you're bringing a real benefit to the passenger. So if the passenger wants to sleep straight away, the lighting can support that, like you said.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of technology out there that can support that automatically as well, and that's where we see the future going. Yeah. I know Collins have something called IntelliSense. It can sense when you've fallen asleep, and then it would automatically adjust the seat lighting to help you go into that deep slumber. Or if you want to work or focus, it's a different wavelength, it's a different color, and it really helps with that. Yeah. Ironically, one of the biggest issues on board is the lack of natural light. You're surrounded by natural light outside, but everyone pulls the blinds down. And if you're on a long-haul flight, that can become a real issue, and you turn up feeling really groggy and, not the best version of yourself. So these are some of the things that we try and work on.
Yeah, and we get exposure to exactly the same kind of things. We spend a lot of our time reining in customers, if you will, because there are the customers and people and moments when you do need something crazy, whether you're welcoming a sports team on board or you want to make a great impression. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is a Northern Lights show. But so you have these LED lighting systems that can do all of these crazy functions. Most of our time is spent persuading our customers that just because it's there doesn't mean you should use it. And actually subtle, most of the time, is really good. It's just saying you want to calm people down or do something very slowly. Most of these things involve colours that aren't a million miles off of white and shades of white. So a lot of our time is spent just calming people down. Just
it's very subtle.
Keep it simple.
Nuanced,
exactly.
And you just get a few shades to the left or the right.
That's it. You get a much better effect. And you can reserve a couple of modes for the crazy days. The bulk of it needs to be quite sensible, we find, but a lot of reining in required to convey that.
That's why you don't want to give the passengers full control to personalize it completely by themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess that's the difference between what we see and if you're in the VIP world a lot lot then it goes the other way.
Yes, I was just going to ask Aris, actually.
In the commercial aviation, this enhances a lot of challenges because you need a sort of uniformity. Because if you have a narrow body of 200 pax or a wide body of 400 pax, you need a sort of uniformization because there is so much variety of. It's all individuals, You can have, let's say, sensors in the cabin or lighting, but which is okay for one person, not so okay for the other person. So in the large commercial project, you need uniformization to a certain extent. Yeah. But I think we can see we go to more and more technology for sure. We have seats that have AI sensors that follow your ergonomical position and everything that can even change and adapt to it. You see a lot of enhanced cabin features with the OEMs, which are more uniform, and you see more simplicity also, I think, which you can find back in architecture as well, and in the hotel world. It's all about experience, let's say, and transpose it to a large number of passengers in one aircraft is an additional challenge. Let's say, absolutely. As opposed to individuals, you can customize endlessly for a number of individuals for a private aircraft. But when it grasps a lot of people, you need a more general acceptance of what you are offering as an airline. Let's say.
I think
absolutely.
It's interesting because, as I said at the beginning, we span commercial and private, and two themes that maybe cross over both is that most project briefings, the client comes to us and they say, I want the best from automotive, but I also want high-end luxury hospitality feel, like you get in a really high-end hotel, especially in the private sector. So we're trying to balance out that kind of beautiful simplicity of maybe the materiality and everything feeling nice and clean and calm, but you also want the seat that feels like, the newest Mercedes. You step in the car, the whole seat, the whole thing comes alive and it feels, super high tech. So, our job is to try and balance out those two kind of things. And we've just recently worked with Collins and Panasonic on the next generation business class seat, which is being launched today, actually, this morning.
This morning I was
Yeah.
there at the launch.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
What did you think?
Oh, amazing! A very immersive experience, and it's just out of this world, really.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So it's
I
pulling
can't wait
in a
to
lot.
try it out. you
Right,
know.
yeah. You can go and see it on both the Panasonic stand and
Yes,
also the
you
Collins
can,
stand.
yeah.
I think maybe easier on the Panasonic one, but I think we're bringing in a lot of those themes that we're talking about. You know, a seat that reacts and adapts to what you're doing.
Yes.
So maybe it knows you're getting too hot and it cools you down,
Correct,
or
correct, yeah.
helps you get into the right position. You know, it's got all the sort of hand gestures for the IFE control. There's this idea that, you know, it's got a huge wraparound screen, and that's the idea that it's like, you know, a wallpaper as well as, you know, just for watching movies and things like that. So we're really excited to have supported those two great companies to develop that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
hopefully you guys can all get to go and see it as
Yeah.
well.
And it's
Yeah.
also, if you hear like our colleague Nico, when you say you have the active feeling, but also the less conscious feeling, which you don't realize immediately, the indirect influence which you have from all these elements like lighting and seating and everything, which are as important as, let's say, the hardcore stuff, let's say. So, which is less active, but it has certainly a huge influence on the whole environment for
Yeah.
each individual, for sure.
Indeed, and the new business class seating solution with Panasonic and Collins, they highlighted the fact that it'll be great for the next generation of passengers who might be used to gaming all the time, and all the technology that's emerging technologies that perhaps the previous generations haven't demanded or even known about. And there's also the another thing to consider when it comes to well-being. So we have all different disabilities to consider as well. Obviously, neurodivergent conditions as well as physical. So obviously, adapting the cabin needs to be. It needs to have that as one of the priorities as well. And I have been seeing a lot of innovation here already today at the different booths regarding these. Charlie, you worked on a project, haven't you, quite recently? And
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you touched on it. I think one of the positives that have come from the COVID pandemic is actually that awareness of well-being and how important that is has really sort of come through and is now being considered up there with things like, you know, sustainability and, you know, all the other kind of regulations. And so I think you also touched on, you know, like hidden disabilities as well and how important it is to cater for those. And we've just, in fact, also launching this week, sorry, there's another plug, but Air for All is a project we've been working on with Delta Flight Products and a whole consortium of some incredible minds in there as well. And basically it's to allow people, wheelchair users, to go on board and use their own powered wheelchair. Currently they have to get off their wheelchair and get onto a different one. Quite often their own wheelchair gets damaged, you know, that's been in the news quite a lot, and these are really expensive pieces of kit. So we've developed a system where it can just slide into place. And this year we've launched the economy and premium economy versions. And it's not just about the seat either, it's also about the whole experience and for that to be seamless and catering to their needs. So we've also developed a lavatory, which is accessible by a wheelchair user. So it has like a much larger door that opens up. It has touch-free controls, and it also has enough space in there for cabin attendants to support that person in there as well. So we're really proud about that project, and you know, we do a lot of campaign work as well in that space for accessibility. It's really important. I think as an industry we can always be doing a lot more in that space. So we're really glad to see that being launched this week. So check that out if you can as well. I think it's just in the next tool along.
absolutely. And so Aris, when we look at the really high-end VVIP completions, what would you say are the most sort of requested features when it comes to cabin ambience?
Well, it's not a restricted list. In fact, it's totally we start from a totally agnostic element, let's say, that we know anything is possible
Yes.
because you have to. I mean, there's no other choice, and that brings also the comfort of the end user and everybody involved. So, and then we are going to develop it into the utilization. What would be the utilization of the aircraft? Where would you go? What is the type of operation? What is the complete usage of all the features on board? And then goes into a step that we are going to make first renderings and everything. And then there's still a lot that is still fluid at that moment, and it goes step by step. And it goes from, of course, the elements like sound suppression. There is quite a lot of, let's say, requirement in that respect.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah,
I believe that's one of
let's
the
say,
most,
yeah.
Annoying sort of things.
Yeah,
is the
absolutely,
noise,
and
aircraft
it's sometimes
noise when
really
you
a challenge.
fly. Yes.
And it's, this is also something which could be expanded to, let's say, to business class seats or business class segments in commercial airlines. But indeed, it goes very far up to upholsteries, and it goes step by step until we have, let's say, a first end result, after which we will have several milestones that are defined, and that are points that are required, because you cannot just start over again all the time, because one element has an influence over the other one. And there we come to a final end result, which is pretty much where we have to be, let's say. So.
Yes, indeed. Then a personal question, if I may.
Yes.
If you all had to name one comfort feature on board, say commercial airline, what would be your sort of top one priority?
I'll go first if you like, and you can think about it.
I think space is very important, because space is being reduced for economical reasons, which is understandable. Oxygen is, I think, extremely important, and lighting as well. So that would be, I think, the three elements that are important, apart from, let's say, a reasonable seat and everything.
Yes.
I think for me, I'm always looking to the future, and I think what really excites me at the moment is I feel we're on a cusp of a connectivity revolution in the skies.
Yeah.
So if you fast forward 3 to 4 years, I think the role that AI will play in your experience when you're on board is going to be huge. So everything being preemptive and predictive, your glass of water being filled up before you know that you need it to do. It will sense, you'll have sensors in the seat, it will see it, it will let the cabin crew know straight away, they'll be topping you up before you know it. Things like that all throughout the cabin experience will free up all of the cabin crew so that they can spend more time on the service elements rather than some of the more admin-y or ops-based kind of tasks. And I just think those kinds of things are going to really take off. On the more fun side of things, I think we'll see things like projections onto windows that will help anxious flyers or people flying with young children that need entertaining. And I think AI is really going to actually play a huge role in that. Obviously, there's a bit of a way to go, with that, but that's why we're all here to support along that journey and see what we can uncover and have fun with that along the way. So that's what I'm most excited about.
No, I hadn't thought of that, but I'm quite excited about that too now. I was going to just go with lighting and a nice seat, but I think those things come along good. I think one of the huge challenges of the industry is it's one thing, as we've been saying, when you've got either a new aircraft, you're designing a new aircraft, or you're making a large mod. Of course, the vast majority of the world's aircraft have been flying for the last 10 years. They were designed 10 years or more before that, and they're going to fly for another 10 or 15.
Yeah.
And of course, all of this technology is emerging. A lot of it is based around smartphones, tablets, and so forth. And we have to find ways of fitting that into space envelopes and things that were never intended for it. And obviously seat power, it's close to my heart these days as well. But everything we do, all of these things we want our smartphone to do things. We want to bring our own devices.
Yeah.
A lot of it is requiring power at the seat that was just never envisaged, even 10 years ago, certainly not 20. So I think there's the two sides of this. There's what you're talking about, bring this technology through, which is great, and then there is working out how on earth do we fit this into existing aircraft with quite minimal changes on a large scale. Thousands of aircraft all over the world being operated by different people. They need to be changed quite quickly, and without too much impact. I think maybe that doesn't quite answer the original question, but I think it's an interesting thought about it, where it's going.
Well, we of course rely on people like yourselves, the smart guys who are actually making this all work and figuring out how to make it work. So
yeah, and it drives it. It's nice. You've said something today, so I'm going to go away and start thinking about that. Actually, so I considered it.
Don't forget the certification of it.
Absolutely,
which is always a little bit behind.
Yeah. That's a whole nother discussion.
I'm sure. Yes, I think the in-seat power is actually very interesting because it's definitely part of the mental well-being for people on board. Battery anxiety happens to everybody, I think, these days. If you're running out of power, and you have important calls to make once you get out of the aircraft, or you have a connecting flight, or anything, that does make people anxious when they see, oh no, I have no more power left. So definitely a big part of the well-being factor, I think.
And these devices just consume more and more
yes.
power. I think of it every time I buy a new computer, which doesn't happen often. I get quite a bit of memory in it, so a hard drive, and I think that's more than I can imagine. That'll last me forever. Of course, 2 years later, I need more. And I remember thinking, not that many years ago, if only I had just a little 5-watt USB socket, that's all I need to make me happy. Now I feel like I need 20, I need 60, and it just, everything just consumes. We have to really think a long way ahead with these power requirements, just to serve those devices.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It will be it will have an impact at the end onto the architecture of the aircraft as well. At the end.
You're going to hit the limit of the engine generators at some point.
We've just been working on a project with an IFE supplier, envisaging what the experience on board will be like 2030 and beyond. What kind of role VR or AR might play in that, how you might then design the cabin architecture to accommodate that, and what the role of IFE will be. At the moment, IFE is very much just watching movies. That's 90% of what people use it for. But what we explored with the Maya project and other projects we're seeing at the moment is a whole host of different uses. It's that kind of extension, that digital wallpaper that a lot of the younger generation now, they're very used to having 2 or 3 screens on the go at any one time, multitasking. I'm doing this here, I'm watching that there. I don't need a full screen, I just need bits of the screen to do different stuff. So I think that's a really exciting area we've been looking at and kind of envisaging how that's going to work out. Power is just going to be a small part of that equation, but very important.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of the things you're talking about, it's so accessible in the commercial world to develop these apps. It's very fast. Lots of people can do it. It's almost a frustration then in aerospace because of the certification, the quality, everything that goes on. Trying to respond quick enough, for I'm going to say a young person's demands.
Absolutely.
I feel old these days, but
that was the crux
expectation
of that project.
It
was all based around the expectation. So it was like a vision piece of like, if you, especially the younger generations who've grown up with all these technologies,
yes,
and they go from what they're doing on the ground, and they step on board, and they're like, why have I just gone back 10 years? I need to be able to use my device and interact with lots of different things at the same time. So it's really on us to push that forward and see what we can do.
You have to commit to it. You have to do it. We need people like you to spec it, which
it's
forces us to make it real,
isn't it?
And it drives that pressure, which ultimately, or creates that pressure that ultimately drives innovation and new technologies. So.
We tell the clients that's what they need, and then you can figure it out.
They demand it. We have no choice. I lose sleep, but we get there.
Perfect. Deal.
And Nicholas, what would you say are your sort of key priority comforts on board?
The cabin's now getting a little different because there are new factors getting into the picture. Don't forget the airplane, the travel is one part of the thing, but the destination is very important. We're dealing a lot with people like, I'll give you an example to say things like, let's say president from China comes to the president of the United States. There are $12 difference. But you see, the minute he gets out of the plane, he's smiling, all dressed up, and he's ready to fight. Elon Musk leaves the United States and goes to China, and he's supposed to be on a meeting. So he's mentally on the top of his shape because there are other people around him. The Chinese waiting for him to discuss it. He has to make the decision. He has to be alert. So this is a challenge. Another thing we have a problem with now they have a problem with the teams. The football team lives, let's say England has got to play down in Saudi Arabia. How do you expect the team to play? The player has to be in a top shape to score. If he doesn't score, 2 things. First of all, He's going to embarrass himself. Number two is now the fans now see the expectation. So they plays inside. I don't know if you noticed last time was that the young lady was Taylor Swift. She finished in Japan, sent them a kiss, blinds down, and immediately flies to Kansas City. And he gets off the plane, smiling again, and the fans, how did you get all this energy? She was singing and dancing in Japan, and then twice in a flight for 6 hours, and was, this delight has something to do with it, not everything. The other people would say, no, I'm not saying it. But
It's in fact a fascinating example,
it
actually.
is.
Yes.
And this thing, the same thing you can see happens with we have other people like, another element that comes now in the pictures, there is something I never heard before, but more Chinese and Indians get into the picture, religious aspect of it. And the Arabs all the time, I had with the Arabs the problem, they want to have certain light, it was not allowed. Another color, that's what they like. Certain day of the light, I have to pray to whatever God, and I have to comply with these things. And there's certain, is another cultural part of it. Some people, some kind of other, besides the people in Europe, they like certain color. For them means something, I don't know what it means, but that's what they want. We have to comply with that. These are the things we're facing every day. And I think the biggest thing is that the major need, of course, yeah, we are humans the same, but we're different. And that's what we have to play for every customer. In an airliner, the problem is not that it's simpler because people they want to go from here to there. But now we see airliners converting the part of the section to be a business jet. So we have to cater to these people the way we cater to the business people. And that's a little tricky because the airplane is the same and you have the different designs. So the people come with the ideas. It's getting a little more and more complex. And the biggest, of course, coming now, which I'm very happy, the environmental, which is very nice. I'm happy because why I'm happy? Everybody should be happy. As you remember, we had fluorescent lamps. Now we have LEDs. Tremendous savings in power and pollution. Things getting better and better, and it's going to be a lot better when I'm not going to be here. The lighting inside an aircraft and outside, don't change it. It's going to be tremendously different than what we see now, what we imagine what's going to be here. Besides the element of the human, oh yeah, I like more light. Something else you notice it, go in an airplane to see how it works. If you see the passengers, more and more of them, they are either no hair or white hair. The population in the world is aging. So the old people, what they need is more light. You see them at the restaurants. You see at the restaurants, you see they usually have the candlelight dinners. No more candlelight dinners. Plenty of light. The old people have the money, they spend them. Cater to them. Okay, young people don't care. The screen is okay. If there's no light inside, it will be fine. Or if the iPhone is working, he's happy. But there are challenges coming ahead of us, but I think we are prepared. We are ready for them. Bring them on. Designers.
Who does this fall on?
What?
Who does this fall on?
It's very exciting. The cabin, and because don't forget, it's a trip and a destination. It's
Great, thank you. So we only have a few minutes left, really, before the questions. So I'd like to just ask you all, how do you see the future evolving? I know we already touched on AI. We've already spoken a bit about the next generation. What would you say there might be, something revolutionary that we haven't spoken about yet, or anything?
I think what we've enjoyed recently is we've set up a new part of Priestman Good which focuses on the private sector, and I think that kind of cross-pollination from the private sector into commercial is great because you talked earlier about noise insulation, the kind of levels, the expectations in the private sector are obviously right up there, and what we're enjoying at the moment is taking we see things in one place and see it in the other, and we can kind of bring them over. And it's amazing. You can use that almost like a little kind of incubator for innovation and have a trickle-down effect. Some of the kind of well-being aspects that you get on a private jet, we're trying to bring over. And like Nick said, the expectation is huge now when people travel. It's not just about getting from A to B. You want to turn up feeling the best version of yourself, ready to come somewhere like here today and do work, or if you're Taylor Swift, go again and sing your heart out and do another gig. So I think that's a really exciting area for us, and we're really starting to see the benefits of that.
And I think the environmental side of things, it's always been there, and it's always been something people are kind of interested in. But until not so long ago, it felt, I think maybe checkbox compliance is the wrong word, but people were giving weight to it because there's a government policy, a corporate policy, whatever. But we're now seeing a wave of, again, the younger generation coming through, but actually starting to be the buyers in airlines and managerial roles who genuinely, in their hearts, care about the environmental impact of our industry. So I think with that, there's going to be a proper love for more environmentally conscious products. I think we will see a proper shift towards that.
I mean, not only from there, but also the demand from the customers as well. So obviously, the younger generations coming up, they are very passionate about this. Absolutely, and if you as a brand don't seem to be, getting on board with that, they will walk away from you. They're very loyal to the brands that they know and care for. Anyone else, that's it, you're gone. So it's going to become really, really important.
Yeah, and as an industry, a lot of things have ended up being quite throwaway, and a lot of it is down to the way things get certified, produced. It's not economical to repair. So we're starting sort of looking into the way we design things. So yes, it may still have to be a throwaway element, but let's make sure that the bit that gets thrown away isn't the whole unit. Yeah. It's the smallest bit that's most likely to get damaged. Obviously, we're trying to make things as long life as possible and repairable where we can, but we just cannot be this throwaway industry anymore.
Yeah, I mean, weight is obviously always the biggest driver, and you look at the way you design a seat. I can tell you for sure, there's lots more we can be doing in that space to make that much better from the ground up. So,
there's already been huge savings. I look at some seats from 20 years ago, colossal, chunky. You can't lift them, whereas now they're a featherweight, carbon fiber.
I could talk all day about this, but I know everyone else has got lots to do.
So we're just going to open up for questions from the audience. If you have anything you'd like to ask our wonderful panel. Yes, please, over here.
Yes, my name is Vasil. I'm a researcher at University of Lapland. You mentioned that in the near future, there's going to be predictive technology that can tell a person if a person is dehydrated or anxious. Can you give examples of what kind of sensors would be able to collect that information, and what are the challenges of collecting data from the passenger customer? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think you've just touched on a very sensitive but important topic. Obviously, there will be cameras, there will be heat sensors and all these kind of things. And we're at a point in our lives with technology all around us. Your phone is collecting data about you all the time. You don't mind because your phone gives you so much back that's so valuable to your life, to your relationships with friends and family, to your work, your productivity. And it has to be the same value exchange on board as well. If there is going to be a camera, hidden in a seat that's, watching you, making sure you're okay, there has to be something that you get from that exchange of information. So I think that's, again, it's up to the designers to make sure that we develop something that really gives back. And if it means you can just sit there and relax, everything's automatically brought to you, they know what kind of things you want to do on board, then I think that's a good value exchange. But if airlines get it wrong and use it in the wrong way, then there could be, sort of a bad situation arising from that. So it has to be carefully curated and considered so that you're getting what you need from that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? No? Well, I'd just like to thank my lovely panel again. Thank you so much. It's been very insightful. And yes, I will be definitely seeing you all around the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.